Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another ranking. Today I'll be doing Star Ocean, Lunar, and Tonelico. Tonelico being a very underrated RPG series nowadays. As usual, I'm not covering any of the only in Japan games like Star Ocean Blue Sphere or the two Lunar games that we never got, so I'm only going to cover the ones that got a North American release. And with that clarified, let's begin! We're going to start with the very first Star Ocean called First Departure. It isn't the first Star Ocean we ever got, that was the second story, because Star Ocean, the first one, was released on the Super Famicom only in Japan, and I never played that version, even though I believe it is fan-translated. So the port on the PSP, that's the version I played and finished. This is the one I played and I'm gonna rank. When this port came out, it kind of went under a lot of people's radars. A lot of people didn't even know it was ported on the PSP. It's very short. I think it's like 20 to 25 hours long, and there's also like two routes at the beginning. Eventually these two routes merge, but you can play each route, and I only played one route and it was great. I love the game. I think it's a pretty basic RPG, and compared to all the others, in my opinion, it's the easiest. In any case, it's still a great game. I'm gonna rank this version on the B. Now, Star Ocean the Second Story. It's an excellent game, probably a masterpiece to a lot of people, not to me because it's brutally hard, brutally unbalanced, and it made me rage quit a hell of a lot. So I usually rank this great game, this excellent game, on the A tier, but because today it's the Star Ocean highlight, I'm gonna give it an S, just for this occasion. Next up is Star Ocean Till the End of Time, also known as Star Ocean 3. The first time I played this game, I had a hard time with it. There was a couple of missions and a couple of puzzles that drove me mad. Some boss battles that, oh man. It's a very hard game, almost as hard as the second story. But the story here, I loved it. The characters, there were a couple of characters that I really liked, like Mirage or Maria. Maria is like the real protagonist of the game. I loved her. And that was reason enough for me to love this game, to love the story. But I understand the battle mechanics can be an acquired taste. So this is one of those games that today I love it, tomorrow I don't love it, the next day I love it, like a flower, I love it, I don't love it, I love it, I don't love it. I can't make up my mind with this game, but it's the Star Ocean highlight. It's a very good game. I'm gonna give it an A for now. Star Ocean The Last Hope, also known as Star Ocean 4. A lot of people hate this game because of the terrible voice acting in both Japanese and English for some of the characters. They found the story to be a little bit generic. I don't give a rat's ass about that. I really like the story. I think it's one of the weakest stories in the entire series, but it's still a pretty good story. And the battle system, I think it's the best battle system in the entire series. It's a very good game. The graphics look amazing, the music, the overall interface of the game is just beautiful. I think this is a very good game. I played both versions on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, and honestly, I gotta go with the PlayStation 3 version just because, but both versions are equally amazing. Another game that I'm gonna rank on the A tier. Star Ocean 5, the last one, well, the last true Star Ocean. I'm not counting the mobile game Nemesis, which is a crossover. I don't want to talk about that game. So this one, okay, it's the black sheep of the family, the true black sheep of the family. It's still a good game, but it's just full of major problems, extremely unbalanced. Like half of the game is a total walk in the park, zero challenge, and the other half is almost downright impossible. And also, if you criticize the story and characters of The Last Hope, it's probably because you haven't played this game. The story here, well, the story is okay, but the characters, half of the cast is downright mediocre, forgettable, extremely generic, and the other half is very interesting. So at least there's some things in this game that keep it interesting and help me into finishing the game. But will I ever touch this game again? Probably not. Star Ocean Integrity and Faithlessness, I'm gonna give it a C, because it's still a good game, it's just not great. Moving on to Lunar. There are 5 games, I believe. 2 of them never came out of Japan. One is for the Game Gear and the other I forgot. And the 3 games we got are the many versions of the first game, a couple of versions on the second game, and we'll get to the other game later. So Lunar, you will notice here that I put the PSP version. Lunar, the first Lunar is a game that I have played in almost every single system it was released. Sega CD, PlayStation, Game Boy Advance, and PSP. The only version I finished is the PSP version. So it's a great game, memorable game, probably a game that means a hell of a lot to a lot of people. I usually rank this game on the B tier, I believe, C or B tier, because I don't think it's that great. But it's this PSP version, compared to the PlayStation version or the other versions, I thought was better. So this is the Lunar highlight, and just because of that, I'm gonna give it an A, the PSP version, because that's the one I finished. Now Lunar 2, I think there's only 2 or 3 versions. The only ones I played are the original Sega CD version and the PlayStation 1 version, and I really enjoyed it. However, I still think the first one is better, but because it's the PSP version, so it's hard to compare. One of these days I'm gonna have to beat both the PlayStation versions and compare them and to see which one I like the most. But other than that, what one game lacks, the other one makes up for it. The other one delivers, and vice versa. That's the only problem I see. That's the only way to properly compare them, but they're both equally amazing. However, I wish Lunar Eternal Blue could have been ported on the PSP, and it probably would have been as amazing as Lunar Silver Star Harmony. Just because of that, I'm gonna rank this game on the B tier. But once again, I think they're both equally amazing. Last but not least, Lunar Dragon Song on the Nintendo DS, also known as Lunar Genesis in Europe. It's garbage. It's one of the absolute worst RPGs on the Nintendo DS. It is terrible. I wish I could say it's not that bad, but it's that bad. Because number one, when you run, you lose HP. Second, it just feels like a very hollow version of the other 2 games, like very extremely generic. This game makes Star Ocean 5 look like a masterpiece in everything. Well, everything else was like the battle system, the navigation, the towns, the interface, the music was like it's just kind of there. But those 2 things completely kill the experience, man. It's a terrible game. I'm gonna give this game an E, and a very well-deserved E, because it is one of the worst RPGs, not only on the Nintendo DS, like of all time. It's an abomination, and I can't even fathom why this game exists. Last but not least are Tonelico, a bunch of science fiction RPGs. Are Tonelico, the first 2 games on the PlayStation 2, turn-based RPGs, great games, memorable stories, memorable characters. There's a lot of like visual novel aspects. You'll be spending a lot of time reading sometimes, but the dialogues are very fun. I mean, sometimes the comedy, when the games are trying to be funny, they are funny, and when the games are trying to be serious, they are serious. They have very good character development. It's just overall they're kinky games, and the battle system, even though it's kind of original and it's great and it feels like its own thing, it's hard to compare it side by side, a little bit like Valkyrie Profile, but a normal turn-based nonetheless, with the mechanic of attacking your enemies until your heroine or the songstress or whatever, the Ravatail, I think they're called, casts her big ass magic spell, which is like a ginormous Henkidama falling on the enemies. That's awesome. I usually will rank these 2 games on the B tier because they're great games. They're not that great, but once again, this is the Art Tonelico highlight. So the first game, I'm gonna rank it on the A tier, and I'm probably gonna do the same with the second game. Yes, it's a direct sequel of the first game, but you don't really need to play the first one because these are different characters, different plot, different part of the same universe, but different part. So, in my opinion, you don't need to play the first one to understand this one, but if you can get your hands on both games, start with the first one. It's the right thing to do. right thing to do. So Tonelico 2 also on the A tier. Tonelico 3. A lot of people dislike this game because of one simple reason. Because in everything else, this game is Tonelico through and through. Everything, the character development, the conversations, the comedy, the seriousness, the science fiction, the world, the kinkiness, the kinky stuff, you know, the fan service, everything. It's just an Tonelico. It has more fan service than the others. But they changed the battle system, man. This was like an action RPG very similar to the Tales of series. I'm a fan of the Tales of series, so I was totally fine. When I played this game, I was like, okay, so it's action, not turn-based, alright. But I love it either way. I love the battle system. But did they really need to do that? Maybe they thought, you know, they were like, oh, turn-based is dying back then. Turn-based is dying, so let's just go into action now. And wow, it did some backlash. I mean, they received some backlash from the fans. It did hurt them, so by the next game, or No Search, they went back to turn-based. Anyway, Tonelico, just because of that, I'm gonna rank it on the B tier, but it's just as good as the other games in almost everything, and I love the battle system here, but turn-based, why did they change it? Why? They could have remained turn-based, come on, there was no need, just because of that. It's a B tier, great game nonetheless. Last but not least, No Search. There is a game in between these two. And yes, the first three games are heavily connected. In fact, the third game is very connected to the second game. So you kinda need to play the second game first before you play the third game. But even if you can't, you'll be fine. Own story, own characters, all that jazz. And now, after this game, they released a visual novel for the PlayStation Vita called Ciel No Search, only in Japan, but it wasn't an RPG, it was just like a visual novel. So what the hell, it was like a spin-off. And then along came No Search on the PlayStation 3 and the PS Vita. I own the PlayStation 3 version, but the one I played was the PlayStation Vita version, which is extremely expensive, the physical version. Probably the most expensive RPG on the PlayStation Vita. It's a good game, they changed a lot of things. The story, I think it's still in the same universe as Tonelico, but it's very different. I mean, it's like, I didn't see a single reference to the Tonelico games, but I played this like 3 years ago, so I could be wrong. Thing is that it's the same basic idea, the guy with 2 or 3 heroines. What I like about this game is that it has like 2 routes. A part of the game you play with some characters, and then you play with other characters, and so on. You go back and forth until these 2 parties merge. I love that. The other 3 games didn't have that. That was great. And also the battle system is different here. It's still turn-based, but you attack the enemies in these waves that keep coming at you. But it's so easy. I mean, it does get challenging as you progress with the game, but the first hours are gonna be like, there's zero challenge here. So I guess it's one of those games that take a while to really start, but once it starts, once it hooks you, it doesn't let you go. So it's still a great game. I'm gonna give it a B tier. Anyway, this is my list. This was Star Ocean, Lunar, and Tonelico. My ranking, my personal opinion. Check it out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!